At first, Narender Singh Yadav was celebrated like a national treasure. The young mountaineer had supposedly done what only the boldest dream of, reaching the summit of Mount Everest, the roof of the world. Media outlets ran glowing headlines. Government officials lined up to honor him. And in 2020, he was selected for one of India's most prestigious awards for young achievers. Everything seemed perfect until it all started to fall apart. Because behind the photos, the fanfare, and the medals was a lie. A lie so bold, it didn't just damage a man's reputation, it shook an entire nation's trust in what it means to achieve something great. He shamed a whole nation. But how did one climber's deception go unnoticed for so long? And why did it take years before the truth finally surfaced? Narender Singh Yadav claimed he reached the summit of Everest on May 20th, 2016. He posted a photo that seemed to confirm it. Him standing triumphantly on the peak, Indian flag in hand, oxygen mask secured, surrounded by the icy glory of the world's tallest mountain. To most, it was convincing. Narender stood on the roof of the world. But to seasoned mountaineers and eagle-eyed observers, the image raised red flags almost immediately. The lighting in the photo didn't match known summit conditions. The background seemed oddly out of place, like it had been altered or copied from someone else's climb. Most glaringly, the oxygen mask he was wearing wasn't even connected to a cylinder. It looked staged, artificial, a detail a real Everest summiter wouldn't get wrong. It looked like someone did a shitty job photoshopping. But then came the testimony. Other climbers from the same expedition stepped forward. They said Narender had turned back before reaching Camp Off, long before any summit attempt. He hadn't made it close to the top, they claimed. He had collapsed due to exhaustion and high-altitude sickness. He never got to the top. But if that was true, how had he gotten away with the lie for so long? At first, Narender's story seemed like one man's deception, but as people started digging, it became clear. This wasn't just a personal lie. It was a web, and he wasn't the only thread. Let's start with the photo, the so-called summit proof. Investigators discovered it had been tampered with using basic editing software. They compared it to real summit photos taken by other climbers on the same day. The flags, the background, even his face looked off. Some elements were clearly pasted from other sources. Mountaineers noticed something no real climber would overlook. Narender's oxygen mask had no hose attached. In Everest's death zone, that's not just a mistake, that's a death sentence. And yet, there he was, supposedly at 8,248 meters, posing like it was a photo shoot. But how, when other members of his expedition, including fellow Indian climbers, went on record saying Narender never even reached Camp 4, let alone the summit, did his name end up on the summit certificate? That's where things got murky. The Nepalese liaison officer assigned to verify the climb had signed off on the paperwork, but multiple reports suggested he had never actually gone up the mountain. In fact, it's common for some liaison officers to stay back in Kathmandu and rely entirely on second-hand accounts. It's a loophole, and in this case, it helped a lie become official. Even more troubling were the whispers about Narender's trekking agency. They were suspected of providing the altered photo, or at least approving it, knowing it wasn't real. There were even claims that money had changed hands to fast-track approvals and secure the certificate. This wasn't a single fake summit. It was a mirror held up to an entire system, one that prioritized stories over truth and headlines over honesty. When the truth broke, it shattered everything Narender had built, fast. In August 2020, 4 years after the alleged climb, the Indian government made a bold and public move. The Tenzing Norgay National Adventure Award, the country's top honor for mountaineers and adventurers, was revoked. That's almost unheard of. These awards are usually final, but this time, officials admitted they'd been misled. They said they were withdrawing the award due to a lack of verified evidence supporting his claim. For Narender, it was more than just a lost medal. It was a national disgrace. The media that had once celebrated him now turned brutal. Headlines called him a fraud. Primetime news anchors dissected every part of the lie. YouTubers, bloggers, and influencers jumped in, making videos, memes, and breakdowns of his fake climb. But the most painful blow may have come from within his own community. Fellow mountaineers, people who had spent years training, suffering, and risking their lives for real climbs, felt betrayed. Many of them feared their own achievements would now be viewed with doubt. One fake had stained them all. And the hits just kept coming. Nepal's Ministry of Tourism not only stripped his summit certification, but issued a 6-year ban from climbing in the country. For any climber, especially one trying to repair a reputation, that's a near-death sentence for a career. Everest is the crown jewel, and for 6 years, it was completely off-limits. Back home, he became a punchline, a national shame, someone who had the audacity to cheat on the world's most sacred mountain, and almost got away with it. But what no one expected was that he wasn't done yet. After 6 years of silence, Narender Singh Yadav made a return, and this time, he did it by the book. May 2022, the climbing ban was finally lifted and Narender headed back to Everest. But the situation was entirely different now. The world was watching him like a hawk. Every step had to be documented, every claim verified. This wasn't just another climb. It was a public trial. From base camp to the summit, his route was tracked using GPS. His team included certified guides and neutral Sherpas who had no personal stake in the outcome. Daily logs were made public. Photos were time-stamped and cross-verified with satellite weather data. This time, no one was taking his word for it. The climb itself wasn't easy. Conditions were harsh that season, with high winds, oxygen shortages, and dangerously unstable weather patterns. But Narender pushed on, and on May 28, 2022, he reached the top. Officially, undeniably, he stood on the summit of Mount Everest. This time, there was no celebration, no press tours, no flashy media headlines. It was quiet, almost clinical, but real. The documents checked out, the photos matched, the Sherpas confirmed. For Narender, it was supposed to be redemption, proof that he could do what he once pretended to. But redemption doesn't always erase the past. Some called it brave. Others saw it as an admission of guilt, a way to clean up a mess he never should have made. And even though he made it to the top, many still weren't convinced he'd truly earned his way back. For India, the scandal cut deep. Narender hadn't just embarrassed himself. He'd embarrassed the entire country on a global stage. His face had been paraded in national newspapers, his name etched alongside heroes. Now, all of that came crashing down. Government departments were forced to admit failures in their verification process. Award committees had to tighten their vetting procedures, and questions started flying. How many other recipients had their achievements vetted properly? Who else might be wearing medals they didn't earn? Indian mountaineers, especially those who had summited Everest legitimately, found themselves caught in the crossfire. Their achievements, once celebrated, were now greeted with skepticism. Every summit photo had to be defended, every certificate double-checked. What should have been a story of Indian excellence became a story of national embarrassment. And, while Narender did eventually stand on Everest, the fallout of his earlier lie still lingers in the shadow of the Himalayas. Narender Singh Yadav may have stood on the summit of Everest in 2022, but the shadow of his earlier lie still follows him. To some, his second climb was redemption. To others, it was too little, too late. After all, how do you rebuild trust once it's broken at 29,000 feet? His story raises a bigger question. What does it really mean to reach the top? Is it about the moment, the recognition, the glory, or the journey, the integrity, and the truth behind it? Everest will always test the limits of human endurance, but maybe the bigger challenge now is honesty. And in a world obsessed with going viral, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is tell the truth, even when no one's watching.